From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay, cows on the lam. See what happened when police got involved in the hoof chase. The president visits a possible new trading partner.
We will be making very major, among the biggest ever made, trade deals.
As a surge in cases of a deadly new virus sent investors running for safety. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. There's been a surge in coronavirus cases outside of China, and that concern is now infecting the markets, with the Dow plummeting on Monday and commodities also sinking, with soybeans falling to their lowest level since May. South Korea is now on its highest alert for infectious diseases after cases there spiked. Italy also reporting a sharp rise in cases, and infections were also reported in the Middle East. These pictures taken in Milan showing store shelves with few supplies due to the virus. Italy now limiting entry and exit of at least 10 towns in the northern part of the country.
And it's just to spook the market. There's no other way to really describe it. We've been dealing with this coronavirus for several weeks now, but this is the first time we've really seen a sustained correction and just a general risk-off day. What does that mean? It means people want out. You've got new lows in corn. You've got soybeans fell down 30 cents since Friday to today's low. We'll see, maybe tomorrow we're going to turn around Tuesday.
Some analysts say China has shut down its global economy to slow the spread of the virus, which is impacting the rest of the world.
Pork is shipped in refrigerated containers. Yep. Those containers need to be plugged into a power source as soon as they arrive at the port. But all the power sources at the ports are at 100% capacity with everything that's backed up because they can't move it away from the port because of lack of workers or staying home. And so now they're diverting shipments to Singapore and even turning around. We had a poultry ship from the United States turned around and sent back.
Now, according to Politico, USDA Undersecretary Ted McKinney said Friday at USDA's Ag Outlook Forum he still expects China to hold true to its promise laid out in the Phase 1 agreement. And part of the deal may include more U.S. beef. Reuters reporting that China's Customs Office says it has conditionally lifted a ban on beef and beef products from U.S. cows that are more than 30 months old. Chief U.S. Agricultural Negotiator Greg Down also speaking at USDA's Ag Outlook Forum. He said China faces a March 14th deadline to take several actions to open its market to U.S. beef. Down said following that, it will probably be about 60 days before the first U.S. beef arrives in China. Happening right now, President Trump is touring India, his first official visit there. There was talk this visit would include a new trade deal, possibly one involving U.S. agriculture. But Bloomberg reports today the U.S. will sign a military deal with more than $3 billion. The president delivering a speech at the world's largest cricket stadium, pledging the U.S. would make a significant trade deal with India.
We are in the early stages of discussion for an incredible trade agreement to reduce barriers of investment between the United States and India. And I am optimistic that working together, the Prime Minister and I can reach a fantastic deal that's good and even great for both of our countries.
Officials are trying to work out a trade deal to open India to U.S. ag products and medical devices. In exchange, India would get a return of preferential export status that the president took away from the country last year. And the U.S. has reopened its markets to fresh Brazilian beef exports. That's according to Brazil's agricultural minister. The news is being met with opposition from U.S. cattle trade groups. The U.S. stopped Brazilian beef imports back in 2017, saying that some shipments failed to pass food safety checks. The news coming as cattle markets continue to digest new cattle on feed numbers from USDA. The agency reporting cattle on feed in the U.S. up 2% compared to last year. It adds up to almost 12 million head as of February 1st. Placements total almost 2 million head. That's 1% below 2019. Marketings also totaling just under 2 million head, and that is 1% higher than a year ago. Winter isn't finished with the country just yet. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joins us. Cindy, portions of the plains already seeing significant snow.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. More snow for parts of the plains, and that's going to be heading into the Great Lakes area as well. Let's take a look. Now, this is the GFS model, the American model, and just one model of many that we're going to be watching over the next couple of days as this storm system tracks eastward. So far, we've already seen a fair amount of snow, especially in the Dakotas, down in towards Nebraska and northern Kansas. As we get into the next couple of days, this system moves off to the east and dumps some potentially heavier snow as you get in towards parts of the Chicagoland area, heading in through northern Indiana and into southern lower Michigan. Again, this is just one model, but they tend to be starting to agree that the track shifts a little bit further to the south. So we are looking at definitely some shovelable snow. This is one of the higher estimates of snowfall. I'll show you another map coming up in just a few minutes. We'll take a look at the situation in Wyoming. This travel camera along I-80. Wow, near whiteout conditions and strong winds. The National Weather Service had issued a snow squall warning, saying that travel was extremely hazardous, and you can definitely see why. All right, coming up in just a few minutes, we'll take a look at that national forecast and that snow that's coming to much of the central and eastern Corn Belt. Clinton?
The American Soybean Association Conservation Legacy Awards are brought to you by Bayer. Bayer is committed to delivering better solutions for farmers while enabling them to operate more sustainably. Bayer, science for a better life.
This week, as Commodity Classic gears up in San Antonio, Texas, we'll be profiling the American Soybean Association's 2020 Conservation Legacy Award winners. Now today, we start in Vincennes, Indiana, where one family has traded their livestock for a conservation-focused farm.
Right there's a piece of rye.
A quick check beneath the snow
It's there, it's just not done much yet.
shows Vincennes, Indiana farmer Mike Brocksmith that a cereal rye cover crop is still on the way.
By the time we're ready to plant beans, we'll probably be planting into 4 or 5 or 6 foot tall cereal rye in May or June, and look forward to that.
Located in southwest Indiana, Mike and his wife Susan have set out to build a system that's both future and financially focused.
We raise non-GMO corn and soybeans, and we're 100% no-till and strive to be 100% cover crop.
It's a far cry from the livestock operation Mike took over from his father back in 1979. Back then, the operation focused on cows and sows, with only 100 acres of tillable land.
Really, the reason we started no-tilling was because we were such an intensive livestock farm that time was of an essence, and time spent sitting on a tractor doing tillage was wasted time to me, and no-till just made so much sense.
Our soils have changed in their tilth and their health. When we're going out there, we're finding more earthworms and more things that are growing.
Even though they dabbled in cover crops back in the 80s and 90s, today the Brocksmiths are using them on every acre.
We really like what they do for our soil types. We're mainly highly erodible soil. The main reason we went to cover crops was to reduce soil erosion. Even with no-till, we still have unacceptable soil erosion on these hills, and the cover crops have drastically changed that.
If we're losing soil, that also means we're losing money off the farm.
And this year, with a late harvest and cooler weather, plans changed.
The thing about cover crops, you need to really order the seed early, but you don't always know how things are going to work out, so you got to be flexible.
They've also added terraces, grassed waterways, rock chutes, and water and sediment control basins.
It's very visible. The most visible times after a heavy rainfall event, when you see water running off your farm and it's clear, and you see water running off a neighbor's farm and it's brown and muddy. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic proof that, makes you have comfort you're doing the right thing.
Things they've been willing to share with folks around them.
Let's use other people to bring about change and make it happen faster, because we're talking and going, oh yeah, well I tried this and this worked here, well maybe it'll work over here. Your organic matter, you can tell the difference there.
Whether it's food plots or wildlife habitat.
I think we're naturalists at heart, and we love wildlife. Neither one of us are hunters, but we love seeing deer and turkey and quail.
Or implementing something new. They've always been willing to try.
We haven't been afraid to try. We've made a lot of mistakes, probably been made fun of, but that's okay. We were doing what we thought was right.
I credit the success to my husband. He has been the main driving force, but I also credit the advances we're able to make with technology.
Preserving the legacy of their farm.
I think we try to live humbly, but it feels good to be honored for doing stuff that you know is right.
And the land and water that comes with it. Coming up, a new player in the plant-based beef business, and it's a familiar name. And later, some cows that decided to go on a little adventure in the country.
The American Soybean Association Conservation Legacy Awards are brought to you by Valent. Valent USA offers proven crop protection solutions to help growers achieve a more sustainable, profitable operation. Visit valent.com to learn more.
It was an ugly day for markets concerned about the spreading threat of coronavirus. Both grains and livestock prices were significantly impacted. Let's see how things close. From Virginia McGathy to CME.
Today in the grain markets, soybeans sank today, that new low since May of 2019 from the coronavirus. Interestingly enough, we're 1 month from the signing of phase 1 and a week into that obligation window, and yet nothing is happening. It seems like the process has frozen, and that definitely is taking its toll on soybeans, which was one of the commodities that was standing to really do better had China come in to start making some purchases. Corn did fall down to a 10-week low. That was a little bit of a surprise. The U.S. stocks are really on the rise right now, and the highest since 1988, with nowhere to go, and that's because China is giving no indication of when they're going to start that purchase. Cattle collapsed. They gapped down to prices from September of 2019, just a number of months ago. Limit down large supplies for the short term right now, just putting some big pressure on the market.
More now on the coronavirus as the outbreaks are increasing fears of a pandemic. Farm Journal's Stein Morgan talks with Arlen Suderman about how it's impacting consumers in China and their buying purchases. They join us from our Kansas City studio.
Here now with Arlen Suderman of INTL FC Stone. Arlen, let's talk even more about coronavirus and China. When you look at the issues consumers are facing in China, not only are some not able to leave, not able to go to the grocery store, but when they do, you're looking at very depleted stocks. I mean, that's the scenario we're reading? Is that the scenario that's really happening?
Yeah, it's hard to picture cities of 10 to 20 million becoming ghost towns, but that's basically what happened. Is they kind of locked down China during the Lunar New Year holiday when people had traveled back to their homelands and kind of emptied cities anyway, and then locked everything down. And even those who were in the cities just stayed put, stayed inside. A lot of cities would require in the apartment buildings, most people tend to live in apartment buildings in the cities, would only allow one person per household to leave every other day to go get food and necessities. Restaurants are closed. Now today we're seeing evidence that some restaurants are starting to resupply very thin, very slowly, but customers are still afraid to be seen in them. They're ordering food online, having it delivered. So you go online, you look at the options, and for a while, very limited options of frozen pork. Now that means it was generally imported pork. If you were near the coastline, you could get some imported, but those supplies tended to go pretty fast during the day. And here this week now, some fresh pork started to show up, or frozen local, which would be reserve pork, but then it's quickly gone. It's generally thinking that people are going back to a more staple diet, therefore more pastas and more staple foods, more starch foods. That's hurting meat demand kind of now. A very slow move back. And some people believe that chicken they associate with the wet market, so they're afraid to eat chicken as well. So that's affecting poultry demand.
But do you think we will see a resurgence in demand? I mean, will this pass, and will we see the consumers be able to get their hands on more pork supplies and maybe want to eat chicken again?
Well, first of all, the Chinese people love fresh pork, and they really want that once again, and that's pretty inelastic demand. Right now, prices there are several times what they are in the United States. Hog prices are 5 times what they are in the United States. They're willing to pay up if they can actually get it, and that's the problem. Poultry demand kind of ebbs and flows. I do expect it to come back, but from what level, and that yet we don't know.
All right, Arlen, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have a check of weather right here on AgDay.
Contact Arlen Suderman by email at arlen.suderman@intlfcstone.com. America's Conservation Ag Movement is brought to you by these great foundational partners, empowering resilient and sustainable agriculture.
meteorologist Cindy Clausen joining us to look at our national weather map. And Cindy, doesn't look like a whole lot now, but there's something brewing here.
Oh yeah, we're going to have a lot going on. This map it's just a messy, big storm system, kind of a complicated one at that. And so it's something that we're going to need to watch over the next couple of days. Let's take a look. A lot of what we're seeing, at least from our model, is more rain as we start off our Tuesday. But watch what happens as we put this into motion. As this low continues a very slow movement, we start to see some cooler air coming in on the backside. So we see some of that snowfall in some of those areas we were showing you on that map earlier. Heavier snowfall possible. Again, this track, any little shift in this track is going to move where we see the heavier snowfall, and certainly will help to determine the temperatures and the precipitation type. This is what happens as we get into the overnight hours. We see that expanding a little bit out further to the west and filling in there. So we have that snow all the way from parts of Michigan on through much of Indiana, Illinois, even into Missouri. Heading through our Wednesday, we see that low making a little bit further eastward movement, but we still have that cold air on the backside of that, and we're going to see that snow now moving into especially parts of Ohio, far eastern Michigan. Now we'll probably see some lake effect snow on the backside of that as we get into our Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. Now there's a lot of moisture involved with this system in the southeastern United States. A lot of this is going to be rain, but the northern edge of that is snow. So this is what we had since ending this morning. But when you add the next 24 hours, you can see all of that expanding, and we see that westward expansion of the moisture as well into parts of Illinois and Missouri. But it's going to be a wet couple of days for a lot of the southeastern quarter to half of the country. All right, let's take a look at that snowfall. Now, this is a different model that I'm going to show you, but you can see kind of similar tracks, similar amounts, just slightly less than what the GFS was showing. But we're looking at kind of a similar track with that focus, especially from central to northeastern Illinois and into parts of Indiana and into central and southeastern Michigan. Let's take a look at those temperatures. We're not too bad temperature-wise, fairly close to normal in a lot of those areas, but we're going to see those temperatures cooling down as we draw in that colder air in the north central United States. So these are those overnight lows. You can see it's starting to really cool down in parts of the plains and especially over in towards the Rockies. And then tomorrow we do see those cool down in temperatures in the north central United States. Looking at the jet stream, you've got that trough that's moving across the country, and so that's why we're seeing this stormy weather here and cooler temperatures that are going to be lasting into the weekend for the east while we see a warm up out in the plains, and then another trough starts to move across the area into the early part of next week. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Lander, Wyoming, mostly sunny and colder for you with a high of 24 degrees. Johnson, Kansas, rain and snow and then snow showers today with a high of 36. And Rocket Center, West Virginia, rain and drizzle with a high of 50.
A decades-old tradition continues as more dairies close in 2019. We have the latest numbers next. And later, these Connecticut cows are on the lam. See how authorities were able to wrangle these critters during a hot pursuit in the country. The USDA reports there are nearly 9% fewer dairy farms right now in the country compared to last year. It says its annual count of licensed dairy farms shows a decline of 3,200 farms. Now, the Agricultural Statistics Service says Wisconsin had just over 7,000 farms licensed to sell milk in the state, and another 34 left the business by February 1st. West Virginia saw a 23% drop. No states reported an increase in dairy farm numbers. Cow numbers, however, are a different story. The number of milk cows on the farm in the 24 major states was 8.82 million head, 16,000 head more than January of 2019. And Monday, USDA releasing its January cold storage report. It found significantly higher butter stocks, up 28% from last month and 15% higher than a year ago, while cheese stocks as of January 31st rose 2% in a month's time, but they're down slightly from a year ago. A police chase in Connecticut goes viral. We'll take you to the front lines of the Hoof chase next.
Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast all about production agriculture. Brought to you by Pivot Bio Proven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, weather or not. Visit pivotbio.com.
Forgive the puns here, but an otherwise normal day in Connecticut ended with a high-stakes pursuit. Connecticut state troopers were dispatched to Route 184 in the town of North Stonington, and you can see why. A dozen cows or so blocking traffic there. Troopers tweeting that with the assistance of local farmers, they were able to get the cows to move along the road back to their pasture, preventing an utter disaster. All the cows made it back home safe. There you go. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.